Check it out.
Friends and enemies, lovers and haters, welcome to Sends and Suffers podcast. I am your host, Mario Stanley. If you haven't already, please follow, like, and subscribe to Sends and Suffers podcast. Every bit counts, and we would love to hear from you. So take a moment to leave a comment. These go a long way and help others know what they're getting into and how good this show is. If this is one of your favorite podcasts, consider becoming a Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you are investing in Sends and Suffers podcast, and it's like buying your boy a taco, hanging out, and getting to know the good that is coming your way. Monthly recaps, early show releases, and all the other cool things that we do. Thank you so much for listening to Sends and Suffers podcasts. The official sponsor of Sends and Suffers podcast is Organic Climbing. From crash pads to chalk buckets to chalk bags to fanny packs, their drip is on fire. And let me tell you, with absolute utter certainty in my voice, there is no greater feeling when you are coming down from your high ball or the heavens above. Let me tell you, of seeing an organic crash pad underneath your feet, you will rise to the occasion or feel comfortable coming down from that occasion. Use Sends and Suffers in your next purchase, get 10% off, and support someone who supports this podcast. Organic Climbing is really, honestly, one of the best companies in the climbing industry as a whole. My guest today is Taylor Fragomeni. She is an online climbing coach with the Power Company, route setter, and all-around amazing rock climber. This conversation is one that we had quite a while ago back at the International Climbers Festival. I hope you enjoy two friends that have never met, that did meet, and now are straight homies. Enjoy the episode. All right. I am so sorry I'm late.
It's all good.
So that's it. But we'll just dive into this. So who are you? Where are you from? And what is your relation to the outdoors, climbing, and all these wonderful things that we do?
Gosh, who am I? That's such a loaded question.
I mean, you don't have to go so existential about it.
I do though.
No, never mind. You're
kidding.
Deep. Okay, girl.
I don't need to. I grew up in upstate New York, near the Adirondack Mountains, which is how I got into climbing originally, actually. I had some friends in high school that had kind of learned from a couple of the teachers there, actually, that also were very active in the local climbing community. One of them worked at the climbing gym there. And then I went out with them one day and was just instantly hooked. And so I actually learned how to trad climb first, which is kind of unusual.
No, I learned how to trad climb first. So you just stole my heart. So now I'm fanboying more than I was originally fanboying before. So so can you be a double fanboy?
I don't know. Sure. Why not?
I was about to say maybe I'm a Fallout boy, but then I realized I don't ever want to listen to Fallout ever again. So,
that time has passed.
Yeah.
And then so I started near the end of my senior year of high school, and I'd already decided that I was going to go to college in Montana at Montana State University in Bozeman. Mostly for the skiing, ironically.
Are you a big time? Do you still ski a lot?
No. That was the funny part is I was really hardcore into skiing as a kid. My parents had us on skis as soon as we could walk, basically. And I raced all through high school, downhill. And I was I'm moving to the West for college.
Oh, wow.
And decided on Montana State. And then I started climbing after I had made that decision, months later, and I was so hooked that I barely skied the whole time I was in Montana.
That's awesome.
Which is kind of funny. I'd ski less and less every year, but I still got out quite a bit. And when I moved to Montana, I kind of learned how to boulder and gym climb and sport climb a little bit, and now I'm just really into limestone sport climbing primarily.
So what about climbing made you hooked, and why was it so powerful that it made you just basically forget the sport you've done virtually your whole life?
I think it's really the movement aspect is a big one for me. And I really loved like how all around challenging it is, like the technical aspects, the physical aspects, the mental aspects. And I think that it really gave me this avenue to like learn how to fail a little bit and persist.
Did you not have that in skiing?
I did, but our coaches didn't really coach very much. They were kind of just there. And like, I felt like really aimless, I guess, in a lot of ways where I was like, I don't really like, I'd been skiing for a long time, but as far as like the racing goes, I was like, they're like supervising kind of.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I didn't grow up in an atmosphere where I felt like it was okay to fail. And so I think I avoided it a lot. Is that
just from family, just culture, or everything?
Yeah, it was like just kind of my family, my household. It felt like it was like, I got good grades. I was like somewhat athletic, and that was just like how I was. And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I had like worked really hard for these things. And so it's like classic fixed mindset kind of situation, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, this is her. She like is on the varsity ski team and gets straight A's. And I was like, there's a lot more to me than that. But it created this very like, I was always just like scared to have that taken away, I think. And I didn't really understand that until years later when I like learned more about growth and fixed mindset and stuff. But for some reason in climbing, it felt like a safer, like easier space to explore that.
Well, because there's no other way.
There's no other way. Yeah.
Like it is the way of the Mandalorian. If you're not falling, you're not learning. And if you're not learning, then like, what are you doing? Like you're not failing. Yeah. That's cool. I mean, it's interesting because like I've definitely talked to people before who have come from either strong family backgrounds where it's like, if you're not first, you're last, if this and that. And it's funny. It's like it seems like you were just kind of always kind of gifted, and like gifted I think is a loose term, but you were always pretty good at it. And then when you finally found an opportunity to fail, you're just like, this is it.
Yeah.
Like the stoke is real. And I think for a lot of people, it's the complete utter opposite. Like the moment failure starts to happen, they're like, okay, like no, like I'm good. And it's like, it's very interesting to me because like, Asian cultures associate struggle. Like you're always struggling, you're always moving forward. But the few people that I've talked to that are not very far removed have always been like, but failure is not a thing. And I think that is you can struggle, but you can't fail. And I think that mindset is very universal across a lot of spectrums. But I think we innately as climbers, like, you kind of just have to get over that.
Yeah.
Like, real quick.
And I think I experienced both where like I was really scared of it initially, but.
How'd you feel the first time you like were like, so what was your experience like the first time you were actually like projecting? I know for me, like the first time I realized I was projecting something, it was like this weird feeling because I was like, I don't like that I'm not getting this, but I can't stop.
Yeah.
I'm like, am I a drug addict?
Yeah, I think I experienced a lot of frustration throughout the course of the first like real project that I did. And
do you remember
I mean, yeah, I do. It was a route called Dances with Cows in 10 Sleep.
That's awesome.
Very Wyoming.
Yeah.
It's 13A. It was like the first one that I had done. And it just, something about that route, it was like, it's really thin and technical and there's a lot of options through the crux. And I was really psyched on it. It suited me well. And I was like, I got to do this route. And I remember just beating my head against the wall, like for days and days on this like 3-week trip that I was there or something. And I ended up doing it. But I remember I was excited, but I was also just kind of like relieved it was over. But I totally went into it not really like understanding how to project tactically and like how to deal with the mental space of it and all of that.
It's like cooking. The first time you cook anything, you're just burning and you're just hoping that it's still edible and vaguely tastes good. And then you start learning what to do.
Yeah. And sending is a skill, like the more you can practice it all the way through completion, the better you get at navigating the tactical aspects and the mental pressure of like wanting to do something, but having to let go of wanting to do it a little bit in order to succeed. And like, it's cool. It's such a fun process.
Yeah, no, it's definitely mentally and emotionally. I think the biggest thing for me is like, especially when I get back on a route and I haven't been climbing for a while and I'm like, okay, I'm going to send this route and on it. And I get on there and I'm like, I don't even want to be here anyway. This is stupid. Why am I not at a restaurant eating or doing something else? But then like the closer I get to the change, I'm like, my psych gets up. And then I always come down and I have to remind myself, I was like, I am out of practice of this, or I am not. And I love how you say like sending is a skill, because it implies that like it is something you have to learn. And I find that I have to reteach myself how to get into the right emotional space to allow myself to suffer a little bit more and drive a little bit more. And also it's a balance too, because I know a lot of people who don't know that balance and then they get injured. So
they get frustrated or they stop having fun, and like climbing should be fun at least most of the time, I think.
I mean, I think it is majority. I mean, but I think all climbers you hit a certain point in your climbing career where you become a little bit of a masochist, because that's the only way you can make it fun. If not, it's all terrible.
It's still fun in the end.
Yes. So what are you doing with so where are you now? Where are you now in your climbing journeys? And I mean, you're crushing all the 14s and 15Gs of the world.
No. Not even a little bit.
I have faith in you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean, more faith than you. I have so much faith. I'll give you some.
I need it. So when I moved to Bozeman, I was in school. I didn't have like a car or a bike my freshman year, and so I was just like on campus all the time basically, and I would just go to the bouldering gym on campus almost every day, like between classes or after class or whatever.
Okay.
And then I started route setting the beginning of my sophomore year of college when I was 19.
How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
29. Yeah.
You have very nice double helixes. No one's ever done that.
Thank you.
Fair enough.
So I started setting at the university gym, and then a year later I started setting at the commercial facility in Bozeman. It's called Spire.
Hey, welcome to Wyoming. This is a beautiful state. Rocky Mountain.
Yes, we are.
So in the meantime, enjoy it.
Thank you.
Welcome to Wyoming.
So I started setting at the commercial facility, and then I started and I finished school and haven't used my degree at all, really. But
what is it in?
Earth science with a focus in GIS.
What is GIS?
It's Geographic Information Systems. So it's a lot of it's like spatial science basaially. It's looking at how things like occur over landscapes.
Okay, that makes sense.
That. Yeah.
Big brain.
I liked science. I liked school. I was like kind of a nerd.
It makes sense why you're good at rock climbing. I feel like the nerdier you are, the better you are going to be at climbing.
It helps.
Well, yeah, because you have
be a little analytical about it.
Well, you also have the ability to fixate and just like not go too far down the rabbit hole, but just go far enough.
Yeah. So fast forward, I graduate from school. I start filling in coaching a little bit. I started teaching youth programs and instructing intro classes and working the desk at the gym. And then fast forward a few more years later, and I was the head setter and the head coach at Spire for several years, which obviously meant I was working a ton. And my focus was predominantly on other people's climbing, which is great. And I love that. And I get really invested in other people's climbing. But a year and a half ago, it just started, or a couple of years ago, really, it started to feel like I need to change it up a little bit, maybe do something else. As I'm getting older, I'm like, man, I want to focus on my own climbing a little bit more. So I moved to St. George, Utah, and I started my own coaching business, and I route set 1 day a week at the gym down there called Contact. And I go rock climbing a lot now, which is really nice. The climbing around there is amazing. It's pretty world class. So I don't think there's like a better place in the country to live for limestone sport climbing.
That's a bold statement considering we're in Lander.
I know, but I don't know. St. George has like a little more variety, I think. I'm not a Lander expert, but
I mean, I think the big thing here is we're in like pocket paradise.
Yeah.
In which I had a chance to pull a little bit yesterday, and I just was like thinking about it, and I was like grabbing on. I was like, I've literally grabbed on like 7 shallow pockets.
Yeah, it's so hard here.
And then also too, one thing I noticed, I realized like I need to warm up my knees and like my internal and external rotation of my knee, because like I didn't realize because I was turning in, my knee started hurting. I was like, why does this hurt? And it's like, okay, this is weird.
The climbing here feels really like strength and power oriented, and I'm more of like a technical climber, and so it feels really, really hard for me. Fair
enough. I'm sure there's a variety somewhere. I mean,
yeah, I'm sure it is too.
I'm more of a bold and power climber. I like the bigger, the bolder, the scarier, the more excited I am. Nice. So like that's just generally how I like to roll. Yeah. But that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now you still losing my tongue here. So you're coaching online
and in person a little bit at the gym too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And so did you like set up a contract with them, or is it just because you are route setting, or do you have an agreement? And the only reason why I ask is because I've definitely had people wanting to start their own coaching careers, but they also don't want to work for a gym. So like, how do you navigate that?
Since they were hiring me on as a route setter, it was easy to kind of be like, can I like do this too? Yeah. And they've been really, really supportive of it, which has been super nice. You know, it's beneficial to the community to have access to multiple coaches and be able to like get in-person coaching. Cause there's a lot of things that you can't like do over the internet, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, they've been awesome about it. And I get to like set my own prices and everything like that, which is great. Cause I do everything at like a sliding scale to make it a little bit more accessible for people. So yeah, it's been pretty chill, which is nice. And I've kind of like stepped in and coached a teeny bit with the youth team there.
Do they have a fairly large youth team?
No, it's really small. I mean, the gym only opened like about a year and a half ago, so it's brand new. Yeah. Oh,
so this is So
I've been there since the opening.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Really this cool. Is really new.
Yeah.
And then you also are coaching for Power Company.
Yep. Yeah.
What is that experience like?
It's great. I mean, it's really, really nice to have access to a bunch of other experienced coaches. Because I think when you're off like doing your own thing, it's easy for me at least to get in my head a little bit about like, am I doing this the quote unquote right way? Not that there is one right way, but it's nice to just have like your methods validated a little bit every once in a while. And working in this like remote realm is new to me, even though I've been coaching for a lot of years. It's very different from coaching a youth team multiple days a week.
Yeah, I know. I understand. That's
so all the logistical parts are the hard parts, I think.
Yeah, my experience is mostly coaching youth team and adults for years, and I do have a few online clients. I only have like 8. I don't do more than 10, just because like my primary focus is in person, and I like seeing people in person so much, and it's like very, very, very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get that. Like, so do you see yourself continuing to coach, or is there any other avenues that you are considering exploring? And like inside the climbing community and outside the climbing community. I mean, don't get me wrong, climbing is life, but it's not our entire life.
Not. Yeah. I really love coaching. It brings me like a lot of joy to be able to form meaningful connections with people and help them enjoy the sport and like learn things about themselves and improve and all of that. Every once in a while, to be like totally transparent, I'm like, man, maybe it'd be sick to not work in the climbing industry. I have no idea what I would do if I didn't, and I'm not like I gotta get out of here, but I do think about it sometimes.
I know I've been in it almost 20 years, and it's like I think about it a lot occasionally, where it's like, what else could I do? You know, and it's like my mom is like definitely throwing out all classic mom ideas. She's like, you should do this. You should open a restaurant. You should do that. I'm like, Mom, all of those things sound terrible when I think about leaving the climbing industry. And so I always wondered, like, do I really just have like Stockholm syndrome and I just can't leave?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be weird. It'd be hard. I think I would have to go back to school to do something else.
Was there anything else that you do that kind of brings you joy, like for balance sakes? Because I think that's important. Mm-hmm. It's like, just as we balance like training and fitness and everything else that we do, I think you still have to balance your life. I quote this book a lot to climbers and people on the show. It's called The Book of Five Rings, and it was written by a samurai, like world's greatest samurai, won something like 60 something matches, undefeated, and created the two heavens style. And one of the things he talked about is like, you cannot be the greatest swordsman in the world. He could not be the greatest swordsman in the world if he was not a master at the tea ceremony, and if he was not a master at like gardening or something else. But like he had balance at all these things, and he was extremely good. And I feel like sometimes as climbers, we tend to get a little lopsided.
Totally.
And so is there anything that you do to help bring you balance? I know for me, it's cooking. Like I was
just going to say that actually. So that's really funny.
Oh, nice. We should have a chef off.
Yeah.
Climbers chef off.
Yeah, I've gotten away from it a little bit since moving, because life's just been a little crazy, and I'm like living out of my tiny little Transit Connect van now.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I love it. I started eating vegan like 5 or 6 years ago now, and I feel like that was when I like started to get really psyched on cooking, because I felt like I had to relearn how to make things. And yeah, it's always been so fun. I especially loved like when I lived in Bozeman, we used to just have like friend family dinners, where like I'd have everyone come over and make dinner for everyone, and we'd like all hang out, and that was really fun.
Why the change to vegan? Like, what was that? I'm just curious, because like, there's a bunch of Olympic athletes who are vegan. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, it was like everyone was talking about like how there was all these Olympic athletes who were vegan, and then they won a bunch of gold medals, and then people were like, okay, this is legit.
We're paying attention now.
Yes.
Yeah. So I will totally preface all of this with like, I think nutrition and like the diet that works for you is very, very personal.
Agreed.
But for me, when I was in my early 20s, I never felt like I got like that invincible phase that everyone gets. But I was having all sorts of like tweaks and injuries, and I was tired all the time, and I was like pretty depressed, and there was something going on that just like, there was something happening. Things weren't quite right. And so I ended up going to see a doctor in Bozeman that was also trained as a naturopath. And she had me do all these blood tests and stuff. And it turns out that I had I still have a sensitivity to gluten and almonds of all things. And so because of those sensitivities, my body was so inflamed that I wasn't absorbing nutrients from anything I was eating. Oh. So I was like across the board deficient. I was protein deficient, which is really hard to do.
No, that's rough.
Yeah. And this is like before I was vegan too. Not to say that you can't get enough protein on a vegan diet, just to say that. And my cholesterol was too low, which I didn't even know was a thing. I was iron deficient, it was bad. So I stopped eating those things, and it got better, which was great. But I still didn't quite feel that awesome. And the rest of my family, my parents and my sister, started eating vegan just to try it out, probably a year before I did. And they were all really loving it. And I was like, well, we're all, share some genetics. So maybe I'll try this and see how it goes. And the first month or two was kind of horrible. I think I was going through this detox phase, which some people do experience that.
Yep, it does.
And at a certain point too, I took one of those at-home DNA tests. There was some sale online for one. You could do one for $80.
I feel like that's the dark underbelly of one of the dark. Okay, so I feel the same way.
This was
about
a lot of years ago. I didn't know.
But still, I feel the same way about those at-home DNA tests as I feel about 4chan or Reddit. Just seems like this dark underbelly. Why do you want this? Where do you destroy this information later on?
Yeah, where does it go?
Yeah. But what did you learn?
So a lot of it was kind of just confirmed stuff that I already thought was true, which was good. But the most telling thing I think was that my body doesn't detox as my natural detox pathways are not as efficient as most people's.
Okay.
So I have a hard time getting toxins out of my body, which I think is why eating like a whole foods plant-based diet for me works really well, because it tends to be cleaner. And I'll still notice if I'm like eating processed foods more frequently and stuff, like I won't feel very good. And it takes me a long time to recover if I like I'm not eating well and stuff like that, or not sleeping well, or drinking alcohol or anything like that. So that was my reasoning for going vegan, and I like it. It's worked really well for me. I don't think it works for everyone, but
no, I mean, I agree. And like, food is like a very personal thing.
It is.
It's funny. I think the relationship with like it. So like, you know, we're talking about climbing, and because that's the thing that's between us both. It's mutual. And I think, hold on one second. I think we might have to move because they're gonna like start drilling. It's gonna be really loud. Yeah. But I want to say this statement
they
real
got
quick.
T-handle wrenches. We're good.
Yeah, but he just broke out the impact driver. See what I mean? For those of you who are just listening, so we are at the Lander Climber Festival, and they are taking down the dyno wall, which they had a dyno comp on and different things like that. And they're looking at us right now doing our thing. So maybe they'll be quiet. I'm definitely going to play hard ass and not move until they start making loud noises. Yeah. But, you know, just like coaching athletes, like their climbing is immensely personal to them, and the routes they approach and the way they do it. Your relationship with food is as personal, if not more. And I think it's really cool for me to hear you say this, because I don't think a lot of people navigate their relationship with food like they do with climbing. And like people talk about like nutrition, and Neely Quinn does a great job talking about it on Training Beta and different things like that. But I think as in general, I don't think people really explore that. And I think that's probably one of the things that makes you such a good coach too, because you are a little nerdy, big scientist, big brain girl, big brain. And you have the ability just to like dive in and think about it. And yeah. So, but like, how do you manage that climbing? Is it any harder or easier? Have you found it, like, especially like long climbing trips, camping, going out?
It can take a little more prep if you're somewhere that doesn't have a lot of like vegan options. But if you're eating a lot of like vegetables, and like you can find beans, tofu you can get pretty much anywhere now and stuff like that. So it could be that like eating out is harder in some places, but you know, if
eating out here is harder.
Yeah. Although that Rise place has a lot of vegan options.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's Sunday.
It's Sunday.
I'm so sorry.
It's totally fine.
Full disclaimer, I was so late, and I was supposed to bring a smoothie from Rise, but then I forgot. We're in a small country town, and nothing is open on Sunday because it's the Lord's Day.
It's the Lord's Day. I'm used to it because St. George, like everything is closed on Sundays too.
Yeah, living in Dallas in a metropolis, it's like if everything was to close on Sunday, people would be rioting in the street.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, you just have to plan it out a little bit. And I think that's true with no matter what you're eating. Like if you want to be able to fuel well at the crag, then you need to like put some effort into it.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, you do the same thing across the board. I'm going to see, where are we at here? Just double checking myself, because I don't think I won that battle with the drill.
I don't think so either.
I think they're going to do that. So would you mind if we take a quick break and relocate ourselves?
No, that's great.
So if you're listening to this, I got something I got to admit. The rest of this audio went off to Never Neverland. Taylor doesn't even know that. So Easter egg. Now everybody found out that if you want to listen to the rest of this, you're going to have to wait until November when Taylor actually comes to visit, and we will sit down and have this conversation and finish this off. So yeah, Taylor, you didn't know this, but now you do. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here before I start rambling. And remember, as always, if you are not suffering, is the Zen really worth it at all? Look at it in every aspect of your life. If there's not a little grind for it, is it really that fine? You got to ask.
Drug Tone Audio.